Hi, I'm Hannah Cruz at the Church Musicians Assistant. Right now, all of us church musicians are trying really hard to engage our congregations and our choirs in music making. During the past few months, while we have been undergoing social distancing during this pandemic, we have all been racking our brains about, how can we keep our congregations involved in music and singing congregationally while we cannot have worship together. Now, some churches are beginning to come together in person for worship again. Some are choosing not to. And so we still need to be creative in coming up with ways for all of us to make music together. In this video, I'd like to offer up 12 different ideas or points related to this issue, some of which might be new to you, some you might have already thought of, or you won't want to use in your particular context. They will apply to virtual worship as well as in-person worship, so kind of be creative about how you apply them in your own context. So let me go ahead and get started with this. First, I think it's important for us to assess the singing ability of the congregation. And if you've been with your church for a while, you may already have a good grasp on this. If you're rather new, talk to the choir, talk to the pastor, and even perhaps get a small section of the congregation together to learn a song or to discuss their viewpoints on learning new music, something like that, to get a better idea of where they're at. Like, what are they comfortable with? Are they comfortable with learning new things? Do they struggle with learning new things? Are they open-minded, sort of closed-minded, related to certain topics that you might want to try out? So that's the first thing. And then second, you'll want to find out what resources are at your disposal at your church. So that could be anything from the instruments that are available at your church to people in your congregation or choir who have skills. Who in your church has musical ability, who would be willing to offer up those talents in some way during worship. And then also ask, what are your personal musical abilities as the leader of all of this music? Because you may have strengths and weaknesses. You'll want to consider those. You'll want to consider, what can you multitask with? How many things can you do at once? And what is just out of reach for you? And that's okay. Know your limitations as well as your strengths. Now, third, if you are going to lead a song with the congregation, and this goes for during this time of pandemic as well as normal times, find out what the genre or the style of the song is that you want to present. So it is important to understand genre and style so that you can understand the characteristics and the history of that music and how that applies to performance of the song, right? How to honor that song and the people who created that song. So I have actually created a handy downloadable PDF. It is free. And in that PDF, I outline all of the different hymn styles, or the ones that you will come across most often. It has their special characteristics and performance tips going along with each genre. That link is in the description box below. Again, you can download that for free. Number 4, after you've kind of done this back work, finding out what your congregation is comfortable with, determining your genre and style, finding out your resources, then you can poll or survey your congregation. Get an idea of what they are willing to try. Yeah, so if you have new ideas about how you're going to engage with them right now during the pandemic, ask them about those ideas before you just launch in and try them. You don't want to try something and then find out that the congregation hates it, right? So I put together a template of some questions that you might want to ask your congregation right now, and you can download that also for free. Check the description box below for the link. And that's just a good place to start. You don't have to use all of those questions. You can edit those questions to target your own congregation, but that will be a starting place. And when you are creating a form, a survey for your congregation to fill out, I highly recommend Google Forms because it is cheap, it's free, it's easy, and you can send the Google Form link to everyone in your congregation, and they just open that up and fill it out, and you get the results. Number 5, enlist amateur musicians from your congregation or even your wider community if you are well connected to the community. Enlist them to play or sing on the hymns. And this can be something that gets everyone involved without having to get congregational singing going, right? Because congregational singing is still, according to most scientists, fairly dangerous when done in close proximity. So if you're going to get people from a congregation or community to play, definitely coach and rehearse whatever they're going to do beforehand to ensure that they are both musical and capable. Also, you'll want to check the balance, the volume, the blend of them playing with you accompanying or people singing, whatever you're doing, just to make sure that that melody is always audible, especially if a song is new and you're trying to lead that with the congregation. The melody must always be present. Number 6, have your congregation participate in hymns, not by singing, perhaps, but by creating simple rhythms together. Now, rhythm making with congregations may sound pretty daunting and terrifying to you. That's understandable, and a lot of congregations are uncomfortable with it. It's a denominational thing, really. Some denominations are very familiar. Pentecostal denominations, oftentimes people will even bring instruments. They'll bring tambourines and play along. But then in some denominations, such as Episcopal, it's on the other end of things. Congregations are not used to participating in a rhythmic way. But perhaps now is the time to try. Remember to keep it simple. Keep it simple. The last thing you want to do is overwhelm your congregation. You also want to keep it appropriate to the hymn genre. And again, go back to that genre download that I mentioned before and see, okay, we're doing a gospel hymn. So maybe clapping on beats 2 and 4 would be appropriate for this. If you're doing a Victorian hymn on the organ, okay, maybe not appropriate. Don't try it there because that'll scare people off. It's just those things don't mesh well together, right? So keep it simple, keep it appropriate to the hymn genre. You can ask people to clap, to snap, stomp, or use small percussion instruments, given that you sanitize before and after. And you may want to do a quick training session either before worship or right before the song. Keep it light, keep that humorous. Make sure the congregation knows that it is safe to try and to make mistakes, and that you are there to support them through the process. Number 7, again, this might scare you or scare your congregation, so always keep it simple and light, but you may try small amounts of liturgical movement with the congregation. And I say liturgical movement rather than dance because the word dance may be a trigger word for some people. It might make them think of negative things in their past related to religion or a particular denomination. Some people just might not be comfortable moving their bodies in that way. We have a lot of preconceptions depending on your generation and your race and where you were born and all of that about dance. It's wild, but you never know how people will relate to this. So always keep it simple, and call it liturgical movement and not dance. Okay, you'll want to consider the physical limitations of people in your congregation. If you have elderly people, if you have disabled people, keep that in mind and come up with ways for all to be involved in some fashion. Also consider body conscious issues, which is what I was hinting at before, right? We all kind of have hang-ups. Most of us have hang-ups regarding dance and moving in church. So be aware of that. It may require you to do a little explaining and a little supporting along the way. Be aware of your sanctuary space or whatever space that you worship in. Are there obstructions? What is the distance between individuals? You want to make sure, if this is an in-person activity, that people are always spaced at least 6 feet apart, at least. You may want to try distributing props. This is a great way to overcome some of our self-consciousness about moving our bodies, because when we have a prop in our hands, for example, our attention is transferred from ourselves to that prop, right? You could use something like a beautiful silk scarf that flows nicely through the air. It is an extension of your body and removes the focus from how you are moving and what others may be thinking about you as you're moving, and it places that concentration on the object itself. So if you use a prop, make sure you sanitize before and after. Perhaps ask the congregants to bring their own props. Fabric is a great one. So you could say, bring a scarf, bring a cheap piece of fabric that you have laying around, something like that, and incorporate that into a song. Number 8, perhaps teach the congregation small amounts of sign language. This one is something we could be doing even when things go back to normal. We should be doing some amount of sign language on a regular basis, because we should be trying to reach that group of marginalized people. Now, if you're going to teach sign language, definitely teach the ASL sign language, like the real deal, not these like made up, water, not the made up signs, because that is not communicating an inclusive signal to those who are actually deaf and have to learn sign language to communicate. So you may use the ASL dictionary at handspeak.com. That's a great resource to learn these signs. That link is in the info box below. Basically, you type in a word, and the search engine comes up with a video that shows you how to do the sign for that word. Very, very helpful. I recommend teaching only 3 to 5 signs per worship service, if you're doing it for one song, just maybe 3 to 5 signs at most. Otherwise, people may get overwhelmed. Also, utilize your children. If you have children, teach them the signs first, then get them to come up with you during worship and demonstrate those to the congregation. Adults are always way more willing to try things when the children are into it. Okay, number 9. This one is more related to art, less related to music. However, you can connect it to music in different ways, but try engaging your congregation in visual arts. One way to do this is if you are pre-recording your worship services right now and you intend to keep doing that for a while, put some effort into those videos. Make them creative. Put some thought into your filmography, and maybe there are some tech-savvy, creative people in your congregation who are into film. They know stuff about computers and software, and they might want to hop in there with you and help in that process. And that's going to help you too. That's delegation of work, right? Now, what you could do is request, in addition to the film, the creative filmography, you could request from the congregation various visual art projects like photographs. That is an easy one because everyone has a phone. Some people have nice cameras, and a lot of people already enjoy photography. So if you wanted to connect this with music ministry, you could send out maybe a hymn text that people are familiar with and say, go out into the world and take a photo inspired by this hymn text. Or you could send out a recording of a new song that you want to teach and say, listen to this song. You could listen to it with your family if you have children, and then go out and take a photo and send that in, and then create a collage of all of these photos related to the song or hymn or whatever the inspiration is. Again, you could do a community mural inspired by something like scripture or hymn. The community mural could be outside on a wall. It could be on a piece of plywood. You could have paints out there, and when it's a nice day, people could just stop by and contribute a little bit to it. You could ask families especially to do art projects at home. Art projects like going out and finding objects in nature that make percussive noises, like rocks and sticks. What can you do with objects in the home and out in nature to create music? That could be a fun project. All right, number 10, teach new songs or old songs, but teach songs to your congregation virtually by rote. By rote just means you demonstrate and they mimic, and they learn it by that process of repetition, and there's not a need for written music. No hymnals or slideshows or anything like that. It is just, it's the old-fashioned way of you sing it, they sing it back to you. Now, what I recommend is hosting a Zoom or Skype session for this. You could try this with just the choir first, or a select group of congregational participants and see how it goes, and then branch out to a wider group of people in your church and try it that way. What you're going to do on Zoom is you're going to sing it. You're going to ask them to sing it back with hand gestures and eye contact, and you're going to have their sound muted. Because if they sing all together, the sound is going to be pretty horrendous, and they probably will feel very self-conscious about their own voices, and that's not what you want. So they will be able to hear themselves. You will not be able to hear it. Nobody else will be able to hear it, and that is one downfall of it. But at least you're getting to see each other in real time. Now, you could also pre-record you teaching a song on a YouTube video and send that link out to the congregation. Put it on the church website, put it on social media, that sort of thing, and ask the congregation to go check that out in their own time. One issue with that is that people may not actually go check it out because we have so many things going on in our lives that that may go by the wayside, but that is one option if you want to put a little bit more into making the video really nice and the sound quality really nice. Another thing you could do, especially right now since the weather is nice outside for the summer, you could make use of that empty church parking lot and invite people to spread out really far, use a PA system, and have fun just singing together outside. It's going to be informal, it's going to be imperfect, but it could be a nice respite from our social distancing. Number 11, instead of you having to lead all of these songs and be in charge all of the time, train someone in your choir or congregation to do this for you. This person will be called a cantor, and the role of a cantor is just to lead a song from the front to kind of, facilitate the singing experience for the congregation. You will want to communicate to this person that it is not a solo opportunity, but a supportive leadership role. Make sure your cantor feels confident in their ability to do this. Now, if they are afraid to get up in front and lead a song for the congregation, give them a lot of time. Say, let's meet a couple times over the next couple months, and we will prepare a psalm or one song, and that's all you have to do. And by the time they get to that performance day, they feel really confident to do so. Also, make sure they know that their voice doesn't have to be professional. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, amateur voices, just a normal voice, is preferable in this situation because it will make the congregation feel like they can relate to that cantor. Most people have average voices, and that is okay. And you're more likely to think, okay, I feel comfortable putting my own voice out there when the leader standing up front is doing the same. Now, of course, the cantor needs to be able to sing on tune. They need to be able to sing the melody correctly, but that's all stuff that you can practice with them beforehand. Make sure that the cantor is loud enough, whether this is for in-person worship or it is pre-recorded or over Zoom. Make sure they are loud enough and have a good sound quality so that the congregation can clearly hear what they are trying to learn or trying to sing with. Very important. Train the cantor to use hand gestures and body cues and eye contact to communicate with the congregation, to bring them in, to cut them off. If they have their head buried in the music and never move, how likely is the congregation to participate robustly? Not very. Okay, so that's important to communicate to the cantor. Number 12, and this is my last point for the video. You may hate to hear this, especially if you have been doing it quite a bit over the past couple months, but continue to put those virtual choirs together. I know it takes a lot of resources and time on your part, but honestly, the virtual choir is the best way to keep your choir members participating in choral music. It's the best way to bring them together to produce something of quality and to offer an anthem to the congregation, something that is similar to what you have been doing in the past years. It's comforting for the congregation and the choir to be able to sing anthems together. It reminds them of something normal, I suppose. Now, if you have been doing all of this work and you would have to do all of the work on the virtual choir yourself, try to delegate some of those tasks. Like, maybe you can hire out the video and audio editing, or there's someone in your congregation who would be willing to volunteer their time on that. Maybe instead of you having to collect all the recordings from the choir, you could delegate that job to someone in the choir. So they would collect all the recordings, they would get it put together in a file, and then send it to you or whoever's doing the video and audio editing, right? So just think about, how can I make this easier on myself if it feels overwhelming to you? And honestly, usually choir members and some, musically minded congregants, they are often willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask. If you want video and audio editing assistance, we at the Church Musicians Assistant do have that capability. So you can email us at thechurchmusiciansassistant.com@gmail.com, excuse me. That's our email address, and you can get a quote from us on what it might cost to do a project for you. We also have a free tutorial on using some free software to do these things yourself, and I will link that in the info box below. Before you move on, I urge you to subscribe to our channel, the Church Musicians Assistant, because when you subscribe on YouTube, it actually really helps us to go up in the YouTube rankings. And basically what that means is YouTube will promote our videos more to other people. Like those videos you see suggested on the right hand side of your screen, YouTube will put our videos over there for more people, and that gets our content out to more people. We can help more people, and our business will grow in the process. Same thing goes for liking our videos. So please like this video, like and subscribe, and help us out. And also, if you click the little the bell symbol, then you will get notifications when we put out new videos on YouTube. And that would probably be helpful for you, because we try to put out videos that are educational and relevant to you right now as a church musician. So I appreciate it. And I hope these 12 tips have been very useful to you. The outline of what I just talked about is available as a free download below in the info box. So basically, just go to the info box for a lot of resources that are free for you to download. I hope these things help you out as you go forth in your music ministry during the pandemic and in the future. Stay positive, stay creative, and I bless you until next time. Bye.